It's Listen In with KNN, the sports sound of the district. Today, we welcome a former standout from the collegiate and pro football ranks. He played his college ball at Florida State University, where he was named an All-American twice, won the Butkus and Lombardi Awards, and honored by Sporting News as his College Football Player of the Year in 1992.
Cincinnati moving the ball a bit. The pass is thrown, and just that quickly, Marvin Jones intercepts. So much for moving the ball. First down, Seminoles, 33-yard line. The freshman in his first homecoming. Marvin Jones out of Miami shows you why he may be, in the not-too-distant future, the most dominant defensive player in the game of college football.
He was then drafted in the first round of the 1993 NFL Draft by the New York Jets and played his entire 11-year career for Gang Green. He's also the father of American Heritage's five-star edge rusher Marvin Jones Jr. We now welcome Marvin Shade Tree Jones to this live stream of Listen In with KNN right now. Here's your host, Kelsey Nicole Nelson. It's Listen In with KNN, the sports sound of the district. We bring you the biggest guests, great analysis, and the hottest sports stories in the nation's capital and beyond. And we bring it to you live. Welcome to this live stream broadcast of Listen In with KNN. Here's your host, Kelsey Nicole Nelson.
All right. Hello, everyone, and happy Thursday. We are almost to the holidays, so I appreciate you all tuning in to the special holiday edition of Listen In with KNN, presented by Fox Sports Radio, 96.9 FM and 1340 AM, with me, your host, Kelsey Nicole Nelson. As you see on the screen, as we're having this conversation today, please be sure to use the hashtags when you're putting your comments and thoughts on social media. We want your questions. We are going to end 2021 strong, and to help me do that, we have to talk football, y'all. We're starting to get into the playoff hunt and race of the National Football League. So I want to bring somebody to help me break it down. So joining me for the very first time on the show is none other than Marvin Shade Tree Jones, one of the finest linebackers in the history of college football. So we went big or went home. He became a three-time All-American, finished as a Heisman finalist while leading his team to an amazing record of 32-5. Former Florida State football star and New York Jets linebacker Marvin Jones, and he is joining me now live. Marvin, how are you today?
I'm great. That is one of the most extraordinary introductions I've ever seen.
Thank you so much. We had to do it big for you, Marvin. Come on. You can't have Shade Tree come and have something dull and boring. We knew who we were having on this show.
Absolutely.
So how are you feeling? How are you doing? As we both know, unfortunately, the Omicron variant is picking up, and it seems like we're going back into kind of 2020 ways, right, with COVID-19. So are you feeling healthy? Are you staying safe? And how's your family?
No, I mean, everyone's great. It's a great time of the year. It's just, difficult, just looking at TV with what's going on with the players and the COVID and a lot of the players being out. I know we just had an opportunity where Texas A&M withdrew from the bowl because they didn't have enough players. So, it's disappointing, but, you have to understand this is the time we're in right now.
It's the unfortunate time that we're in, but I'm hopeful, Marvin, that we can get through this together. We're trying to end the year with a little bit of joy, but I really hope people continue to follow protocols. Like you said, it's a little depressing when you look at that. But on a positive side, Saturday, Christmas, Marvin, any fun plans for the holidays?
Yeah, I'm trying to save some money.
Aren't we all? Aren't we all? I tried to stay away from the stores and shops today.
Well, it's gotten Christmas is real easy for me. I mean, the kids are older now, so I don't go running around the stores looking for all these gifts that they're not going to play with anyway. So it's just better if you give them an envelope with cash and let them buy what they want to buy. And
can't go wrong with
that. It makes it simple.
I'm glad you said that, because I thought you were going to say, as the kids get older, I don't need to get them a gift. And as the oldest child, yes, still get us gifts as long as we are here on this earth. A child always appreciates that. But like you said, you can't go wrong with cash, not even gift cards. We want the cash, Marvin. We want to go spend the hard-earned bucks. So it's great to hear that, but glad you and the family are doing well. And talking about the family, your son made big headlines. Marvin Jones Jr. committing to Georgia, the Bulldogs over Alabama, your alma mater, FSU, Oklahoma, and Texas A&M. How did this conversation go down in the household? Were you really wanting him to go to FSU, Marvin? Or are you really letting it be his choice?
A part of me wanted him to go there, but at the same time, when I went to Florida State 90 to 92, I mean, Florida State isn't the same school at that time. I mean, they went through some changes the last few years, and it's a very easy conversation when you're talking to your son and he's talking about the schools that he was choosing at the top was, Florida State, Alabama, and Georgia. If you look at Alabama, I mean, Alabama's arguably the best team in the country for many years in the past, and Georgia's doing very well at this particular point in time, and they're both in bowl games, and my alma mater sitting at home. So
sorry, Marvin.
But
even my church playing at a bowl game, Marvin. I'm happy right now. Maryland football playing at a bowl game.
Wow. I know times have really changed. I can remember back in my days, we were beating Maryland 70s.
Oh, you didn't have to bring that
70 points on them. But like I said, the times have just changed. I mean, it's just hard for I had to just kind of let it go as far as, my personal feelings about it, just simply because I wanted him to make his own choices. Yeah. Like I said, he has to go to school. I don't have to go there and do that anymore. But I just wanted to make sure he was informative about everything that was going on, about the school, the city, potentially for him playing and, his position. So he was very confident in that decision. I can remember when I kind of felt he was ready to make the decision. I kept talking. I was running my mouth. He's like, Dad. And I kept talking. He's like, Dad. I'm like, I kept talking. He's like, Dad, listen. It's either Alabama or Georgia. That's it. I said, okay. So I'm just going to be cool. And so I just started talking to him about, the difference between those schools. So, I mean, when he's older, he's a man, he's a young man. And, sometimes as a father, we got to know when to, have to let the bird lead the nest.
You do. It can be tough, but you do. And it's great to hear that you guys did have that conversation. I know it kind of hurts a little bit, but I think it's great. He's going to make his own legacy and story with the Bulldogs, even though it's going to be interesting when the schools match up. I don't know who you're going to be rooting for, Marvin, the son or the alma mater?
Well, I'm always going to root for my son, for him to do well. He's a great young man, and, hopefully, he can have a great career and, live up to those expectations. And, one of the biggest things I had to let go was, sometimes it's good to have your son go to your school, and sometimes it can be not so good because, he's going to always be compared to me, depending on his play. Well, your daddy, are you playing up your daddy? Your daddy was, so you don't want to hear that all the time.
Yeah. So, it's kind of like living in the shadows, right? Like you said, and you always will be compared regardless, because you have me thinking about the situation right now, Jackson State, right? And Jackson State football and the job that Deion Sanders is doing. He's got his sons there. And curious, we're talking about FSU, and there's been conversation about Deion Sanders landing a top recruit. Lots of conversation because we've got top recruits now relooking at HBCUs, and you played football, many times. We've had many great players come from historically Black colleges and universities. So just was curious if you wanted to weigh in on the situation. Do you like the move with Deion being able to bring top talent to Jackson State and hopefully making the SWAC better and overall just HBCU football with more competitive games, hopefully getting more attention, more scouts at games? I feel like it's a parallel, more money for the schools, right? I feel like there's only positives.
Well, yeah, I think Deion has done a tremendous job. Especially economically for the city, bringing in so many people for the games. But if you look traditionally, 50s and 60s and in early 70s, a lot of HBCU players were in the NFL up until I think about 1979 is when it kind of changed, where the numbers started going back down. It's like anything. I mean, the NCAA, they built a better mousetrap, and all of the players, from HBCUs started going to the major universities. So I think you got to, level the playing field, because back then when I was coming out, I remember was getting letters from HBCUs, and I didn't really even
know about them. Really?
And
you remember some of the HBCUs, Marvin, that you got letters from? Do you remember? I know I'm taking you back. Do you remember some of the ones that were trying to recruit you?
Well, definitely Larry Little when he was at Bethune. He was a local Dolphin player. That's probably the only one I can remember.
I know I'm taking you back.
My head coach at that time was he went to a HBCU, so like Fort Valley State and some of Valdosta State and those schools back then. Like I said, we didn't give him a time of day. And as I look back on, I'm like, wow, should have gave it an opportunity, but a lot of them were just so underfunded. I mean, you went to facilities, you always, had the programs, like even to this day, with, Deion Sanders a few weeks ago was talking about one of the teams couldn't play because they didn't have a trainer. And I mean, that's just basic things. Yeah. So they have to put on a better show. Like I said, the optics have got to change. And I think he's changing that, as you see a lot of the coaches that are going there, even Hugh Jackson, which was, I had high regard and respect for Eddie George, whom I played against. All these guys are getting in there. So one of the special things about Jackson State is running back coach Gary Harrell. He and I played together at Miami Northwestern back in high school.
Yeah. Look at that. Yeah.
So he told me he was like, hey, we're going to get the job out in Jackson State. So I knew before most everybody knew. So I'm really proud of what Deion has done. I think it's great for the game. You got to level out the playing field. If we're going to say that our schools are just as good as everybody else's, we have to start attending our own schools. Our best players have to put that talent there. Absolutely.
Yeah. It's so important, and I'm glad you mentioned that. And I wanted to bring it up because, again, I think it was a hot button topic. I think some coaches felt the type of way now that Deion is getting it, because we all know prime time and, of course, his name and legacy. But I'm like, this is a game changer, and we want sports to stay competitive. I'm like, if you can't bring the top recruits, hey, that's on you. That's on you. This is what recruiting is going to. Scouting is going to.
Well, I think I look at it this way. If you look at, maybe when I came out 20, 25 years, 30 years ago, most of the coaching staffs, didn't look like us. I mean, there wasn't a lot of black coaches on those staffs. So a lot of the schools that did have black Americans on the team, they would kind of use that against them. Like, hey, who are you going to talk to? I mean, it was a different conversation. I can remember a school that was down in Florida that was that way when they had a black head coach, because he'd go in the homes and they're like, well, he's somebody that you can relate to and those things. So, and the other schools are like, okay, well, we got to catch up. So all of a sudden you saw a few other black men. We got to compete with them now. So, and I think at the same time, what it's going to do is strengthen the African-American coaches, because years ago, coaches wouldn't go there because they felt like it was, honestly, they felt like it was what we called back then a career killer. Like once you went to those schools, but I think that it's going to change the game. I think that it's going to give a level playing field from everybody. The sponsorships, I think those things, I think the deal with Hunter really opened up a lot of eyes. I think a lot of people are going to follow with that. It's like kind of like Jimbo Fisher said the other day, they've always had NIL agreements. They just wasn't legal.
There you go. Look, and that's facts.
Well, I wouldn't know. I didn't.
Okay, sorry, y'all. Marvin Jones didn't know. Okay, only I knew.
I was on the straight and narrow when I went to school.
Too funny. All right, we're taking a quick question from the fans. This one's from Jamel Cutler. And you kind of touched on it, but do you think HBCUs can compete with PWIs when it comes to securing top players? And it sounds like you're saying it's changing. And it sounds like you're saying, yes, we're kind of going in that direction. Right, Marvin?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I think the issue is always going to be this: the power PWI schools, they have the depth right now. A lot of the HBCUs, if you look at Jackson State, there's probably, maybe 2 or 3 guys on there that maybe, probably could compete, say, on the Power 5 level.
Right.
But it's just they have to start gaining that depth. I mean, you look, I'm just saying, if you compare them to a school, even like Georgia, Alabama, or even the Clemson, I mean, these guys have, they have a first string, a second string, and a third string. Yeah. So they, Alabama only recruits 5-star guys.
Of course, so right.
I think, as it goes along years, I think maybe in 4 or 5 years, you may be able to compete, but you got to build that roster. You just can't have that 1 or 2, 3 or 4-star guys.
Right. Of course. Like you said, football is a team. Like you said, you need that depth because players go down. We're unfortunately seeing the injury bugs hit many programs. With that being said, do you feel like now when we look at HBCUs and you're talking about the depth that they can get, I do think they can get it, but like you said, it's going to take time and a process, but I don't think we're at that point yet. But I am just glad, again, that players are considering it. I'm talking to more high school players even here in the DMV area, and they're like, oh, yeah, this HBCU and that HBCU. So I'm just glad the light is being shined on it. And Deion Sanders, just giving him props. I know he lost the game in the Celebration Bowl, but again, what he did for that program.
We're going to talk about that. I'm going to call it a loss. It's a different word.
I think nice on the show. The holidays are coming, Marvin.
But you know what? I tell you what, though, it was a great atmosphere. They got an opportunity to play in a great stadium. I mean,
sold out.
The optics of the game were awesome. I mean, just the broadcast, everything. I mean, I thought that it was an awesome presentation, and I think that alone is definitely a game seller.
Yeah, for sure. Like you said, and I think now many more are going to be tuning into it. I appreciate you talking HBCUs with me. And then staying with signing days, some former Jets, right? Sons of 5 ex-Jets commit to college football on National Signing Day. I thought that was tremendous. It has to be a great feeling. We're talking about Marvin Jones, Josh McCown, Chad Pennington, and Jason Taylor, Anthony Becht. Saw their sons commit to FBS ranks, all right? And 4 of the 5 signed to play at Power 5 programs. It has to be a proud feeling, right, for all of you, just to see not your sons necessarily following the footsteps, but playing football, the game they love, and now competing or about to compete on the top level, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a tremendous thing. I mean, 5 guys from the same organization. But I look at it as this. It also shows you that, like my son, he's been playing football since he came out the crib. I mean, when he had, he had a little runny nose. I mean, I had him playing. He would always be around the game. And that's one of the most important things is that, our kids are always in the game at such a young age. And, it just shows you that you have to get these kids involved at a young age. Only thing I would do differently is I would let my son play flag football early on rather than.
I was going to ask you that, the safety issue. Yep. And a lot of parents are talking about that.
Yeah. He started playing when he was 5 years old. So,
wow.
And he's 17. So you're talking 12 years by the time he even can have an opportunity to even make $1. I mean, so, it's something that I would do differently in regards to that. But, you have to start them early. I mean, that's how they become the best players because they develop an attitude. They know how to, the coaching side of it because we teach them all of that stuff. We teach them the X and O's because we know them.
Exactly. Y'all know them best, right? Y'all played at the top level. And that being said, though, Marvin, do you feel like we've made the right strides to make the game safer? Do you still feel like there's a lot of work to do to make the game safer? Because we keep hearing about, unfortunately, CTE cases and things of that nature.
Well, the game has always been catered to offenses. People want to go see touchdowns. People want to make sure that, because of a franchise quarterback, you lose your franchise quarterback, the season is pretty much over. So, I mean, and a lot of that was going on when I played because there just wasn't the same protection. So I understand what they're trying to do as far as the quarterback. And I think, defensively it's a little harder because you're expecting to make contact with a guy and all of a sudden you got to pull up. And, it's like when I was watching one of the games, I forget which game it was, when the quarterback faked like he was going to slide and the guys all pulled up. Pittsburgh game. And I was like, man, the next time somebody is going to clobber him because they just going to think.
You don't know.
But then they, obviously made a rule against that now that you obviously can't do that. But I think the game I think some of the rules make it safer, but I think a lot of the issues going to stem from training camp because
Right.
the training camps aren't the same as they used to be.
Mm-hmm.
There's way less hitting, and I really don't understand how
Yeah.
you can go through 3 or 4 weeks and not hit as much, and then all of a sudden you got to turn that thing up on game day. That to me is, I think, where a lot of the injuries come from. I mean, we got to imagine we hit harder back then.
Oh, you guys did. That's why a lot of us like
back then, and we didn't. I mean, and we never really had guys really left the game. And I'm not saying that guys weren't hurt and they stayed in. I mean, but everybody didn't get pulled out for concussions like now. It's like every time a guy gets hit hard, they're pulled out. I mean, back in our days, if you got a concussion, they ask you like 3 questions. Do you know where you are? Do you know what year it is? And who's the president of the United States? If you can answer those 3 questions, go back out. You good. Get them back to the field.
You just got to know that information. I appreciate you touching on that. Like you said, if a franchise quarterback goes down now, many teams do hit the panic button, even though I would just say from the latest games we saw from Tyler Huntley, Baltimore might feel kind of confident in their backup quarter situation. Curious your thoughts on Tyler Huntley, since he's getting a lot of attention now, Marvin, and many are saying it looks like he might deserve a chance to start somewhere with some of the quarterbacks right now we're seeing in the National Football League.
Well, I think that he's done a tremendous job. I mean, Baltimore is for the last 3 to 4 years, ever since whatever the quarterback name, I forget, but ever since he's been now, well, they've done a tremendous job over the years. They've had a great roster. I think Harbaugh has done a great job. I think, even from the general manager, they've managed to bring in some great players over time. I think when you look at this, people are going to say, oh, well, there's a quarterback controversy. No, you don't lose a job to injury. I think Lamar Jackson is still going to be the guy. I think, what's going to happen is Huntley is going to, build up his stock. I mean, they'll find a way, depending on what the economics are, to probably keep him off the market, and hopefully nobody else gets him. But, I mean, it's hard for a guy. I mean, he's shown what he can do. But at the end of the day, one thing, the difference is Lamar Jackson, and at the end of those games, have won those games. He's won those games. That's the biggest difference in the crunch time. If you look at Tom Brady, you got 1 minute, you're probably going to lose.
Yeah, it's scary to have Tom Brady with time on the clock.
Aaron Rodgers, you're probably going to lose.
Yep.
Lamar Jackson, you're probably going to lose, and he's shown that ability to do that. So I think Huntley hasn't, kind of shown that as much as he would need to in that situation. But they've been competitive. I think one of the biggest things is when I look at a team, always at the end of the game, as long as you have an opportunity to possibly win the game, put yourself in position to win, I think that's a great job. It's hard to win in the NFL.
I was going to ask you that because Baltimore, I'm in the DMV area, lots of talk still about John Harbaugh and his decision now to go for 2 twice at the end of 2 games. We're talking about at the end of the Green Bay game and at the end of the Pittsburgh Steelers game. And then I don't know if you saw, we saw a video now that has since probably gone viral where he asked the players, hey, do y'all want to go for it? I think all players would say, yes, we want to go for it, coach, and win. And so many are questioning that, saying, no, it would have been better to go to overtime. You have a backup quarterback. Baltimore's not injuries and COVID-19 plaguing them. So I'm curious your thoughts on that decision of John Harbaugh, because some are calling for him to be axed, Marvin.
Well, I'm a head coach myself, and I used to do dumb things like that too. But now I take the points. You always got to take the points, but you got to look at it another way. The head coach, if he's axing the team, what do you want to do? But guess what? Those players are going to get cut when they don't perform. I mean, the head coach get to stay possibly. But I think in the NFL, most of those games are so close. People realize, you may have a blowout here and there. But most of these games are going to be 3 to 7 point games. So, you have to always take the points in mind. I think sometime a coach feels, depending on how the last series went at the end of the game, do I think my team could go another quarter in the overtime period and win the game? So some of them just like, okay, well, the other team looks a little tired, so we're tired. Let's just go ahead for the 2, get it over with. Rather than extend the period. So, but you always got to take the points. You always got to. I mean,
I'm like you. Take the points.
You got a great kicker,
Justin Tucker. Yes,
right. That's absolutely.
They were to have Justin Tucker on their team. All right, like it's just true. I mean, I'm Justin Tucker, every team. We saw that Lions win, right? And that crazy kick he did to end that game against the Detroit Lions. But you're right.
Yeah.
Many felt
but that's one of his moments. That's a highlight for Justin Tucker to say I won the game. But it seems like to me what it has shifted from is not Justin Tucker winning the games, but Lamar Jackson or Huntley winning the games.
Yeah, and that's a big conversation. And like you said, when you touch on that, though, I think many are saying, especially with how close the playoff race right now is in the National Football League, especially the AFC North, they're looking at Baltimore saying, hey, you guys could have been possibly a 10-win team. Now you're looking at 8 wins, and now we just don't know how these next couple of weeks are going to go for Baltimore. I also love this question from Jamel Cutler. If you can grant the Jets one Christmas wish, because we're in the holiday spirit, what would it be, Marvin?
We can go back to 1968-69 season and win the Super Bowl. Yeah,
probably wishing that too.
I think one of the things about the Jets is, the fans have always been great and supported the team. I mean, they're tough. No matter who goes to the Jets, you're going to pay for the whole history of the team. So one of the things I could wish for them is that in the future, being able to make good draft picks that's going to stick around. I don't think the Jets they can't have more than 1 or 2 guys that's been on the team for, they've cleared the whole roster out for the last couple of years. I don't think they have any picks from 3 years ago.
Yeah, the rebuild they're going through.
Usually the first round guy always gets the 5 years. The third and fourth round guys generally get the 3-year deal, 3 or 4 year deals. But I don't think anybody's been there in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
And you got to build, but that's for different reasons for that. I think the biggest wish would be I wish they got rid of those high taxes. That way you get free agency.
People don't think about that, but yeah.
You're paying 50+% or 53, 54% in taxes. That's a hard sell. When you can go to Florida where there's no state taxes or Dallas where there's no state taxes. So, but I wish the Jets would just get it together. It seems like when we do get moving in the right direction, something happens. And, it's like we've been now, I think it's a 10-year drought without making the playoffs. And that's just a tough sell. We selling seat licenses for $25,000 just to buy seat. It's a hard sell for people, and people aren't going to keep because they feel like they're not putting a quality product on the field.
Right, doing what they need to be doing. But like you said, that fan base, though, I have to give it to them. It seems like even through the ups and downs of the Jets, they are there. Because we've seen some games on Sundays where we've seen other away teams fans overtake their stadiums because, fans are just giving up and had said, hey, I'm just going to sell my ticket. I'd rather just watch this loss from home. So I do have to shout out the Jets fans. But the Jets, like you said, look, you don't have to call us out.
You just automatically assume when they're losing. Wow. You don't give us a chance.
The fans, even though I will tell you, Washington fans were happy at the beginning of the Eagles game, but then of course everything kind of unraveled and unspiraled. So they're kind of sensitive right now in Washington. They're waiting for Sunday night to take on again the Dallas Cowboys. But I appreciate you touching on the Jets. We're hoping, look, we want to turn around for the Jets. We love the fans, but the Jets right now 4th in the AFC East. They're in 11, but they did have some Pro Bowl alternates selected. So I guess there's a little bit of joy, right, in the gang green.
You said they're 4th in the AFC East. How many teams in the AFC East?
Yeah, they're the bottom. They're at the bottom, Marvin. They might could use you, Marvin.
What? I don't know. I would say this. The positioning, if you looked at training camp before the season even started, how many guys they lost during practice, the injuries. It seemed like every day they lost the guy. And, years ago we had the quarterback didn't start the season because he had mono. It seems like every year, if there's something that can happen, negative, it happens to us.
I don't know. I guess every Jets player just needs to be praying. Continuous prayer. Hopefully that will shield.
I'm praying. I've been gone for 18 years now.
One day, Marvin, it'll be answered. But, as we're talking about football, I want to talk more about you. And recently you had some good news, right? Accepted into the Master of Arts Addiction Counseling Program at Liberty University, right? That was big news, Marvin. Congratulations on that.
Thank you. And the thing is, I don't even like school.
Really?
It took me a long time to get my bachelor's degree, interdisciplinary studies, sociology, psychology, and management.
Yeah.
But I feel like my real calling has always been helping others and some type of counseling.
Yeah.
So it's an area that I would like to go into. I think that, a lot of people really don't understand it. I mean, it has its stigma. People think that it's always a choice, but there's a lot of factors that go into creating who we are as people. I look at it this way. I always tell people this. I say, well, listen, when you have guys like even play in college or go to the NFL type of athletes, they always run a story on these guys about how bad some of the neighborhoods is.
Yes.
These guys going through traumatic situations, but you never ever hear the player talk about how they went to counseling to overcome that. And they're carrying a whole lot of baggage that's, subconscious. It might not be something they're even thinking about, but it still weighs on you.
Right.
So all of these guys, like me, for instance, I would always require, I know talking to some of the colleges, like Alabama, they have a program that when you get to Alabama your first year, you have to go through counseling.
It's good. Right.
And I wish more colleges would do it because you are who you are. And when you get money just makes you more what you already is. If you got those little issues now, you can go out and, and there's all kinds of, obviously there's all type of addictions, buying stuff. Drug, alcohol, you name it. And some people are shopaholics, like some.
Why you look at Marvin? Why you look at me? Are you taking shots at me, Marvin, on my own show?
Well, that's not a bad thing. As long as you can afford it. That's the issue. Yeah. As long as you can buy it without.
That's true. As long as you don't go broke. Message to those out there holiday shopping right now: don't go broke.
Right.
You still got rent to pay January 1st.
But that's my goal. That's my passion. I've always been that way with helping other people, and it helps me. But I think I just watch a lot of these players, and I'm like, man, I could really help these guys, and because I've been around it a lot. My whole life. Especially back in those days in the 90s.
Yeah, it was a different game in the 90s. And, we've had a lot of former players that played when you played on, and they talk about some of those things and how things were. And, a lot of them now, this is why I love your story. They're kind of doing the same thing. They want to give back and try to be that person or that savior that they didn't have, unfortunately. And I'm also glad that you brought up kind of how these players' lives are kind of exploited. I think a lot of people have a problem with that. It seems like every time you watch the draft, you hear like, all these negative things. And it's like, okay, but also there's some positives in the story, right? And so I think you touched on so many great things, and I'm excited for this program for you. What made you choose Liberty, Marvin?
Well, the other school, I actually got accepted to the University of Denver first.
Okay, nice.
To them, which is the top program in the country. But, hey, they wanted $84,000.
Ooh, Marvin had to dig up some of them old paychecks, right?
No. So I think, well, one of the things is this, and this is the reason why I think the NFL is moving in the right direction in some ways, and guys got to take advantage of it because the NFL does have a scholarship for players. If you fill it out, they award you up to $20,000 per year for your education.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, I'm going back to school and I'm going to get this degree. Why not? If somebody's going to give me an opportunity and pay for my education, yeah, I'm going back. Absolutely. Yeah. I'm taking advantage of that benefit. And I wish a lot of guys would.
They should. Like you said, it's there for you. And you put your body on the line and your time and effort. So I think that's great. And I know more colleges and universities also are starting to have programs, right, where athletes who left early can also kind of go back and finish their degree as well, that we're seeing more of, which I think is also a fabulous thing.
Absolutely. It's going to be hard, but you got to have that drive. I think it came down for me about 4 years ago. My older brother, who he looked at me, he said, "Marvin, when are you going to finish something? So you start all these things, when are you going to finish it?" And I said, well, and that kind of gave me that little push. You know what? Like, absolutely right. But I'll tell you this, but once I got my bachelor's degree, I'll tell you what, doors open. Jobs and opportunity. Remember, you can't even coach in college without a bachelor's degree.
There you go. Right.
And most of your smaller schools, they want a master's degree.
Yeah.
So, you have to be educated, put yourself in a better position, open up a lot of doors. Now, coaching is very difficult because it's hard to get into because it's everybody wants to do it. I mean, and so it's very competitive. I send out resumes and they just send them right back.
Wow. Like you said, it's competitive, but you've been coaching now for a good while, right? I want to talk about kind of your journey into coaching, right? I know you did a coaching internship, right, for outside linebackers with the New York Jets and some other things. You see you rocking that shirt as well. So let's talk about your journey into coaching and how it's been and now how it feels to be on the other side, right? Going from playing on the football field to now leading on the sidelines.
Well, I guess a lot of the players today are paying me back how I should treat my coaches. No, but I've been in really since about 2004. Once I retired, and I didn't get tired. In NFL players, we get fired because nobody walks away from that type of money. So we get fired. Don't believe that stuff when people say I retired from the NFL.
Don't believe that.
They got rid of you. They fired you. But, but when I was playing my last year football, I was like, boy, when I am done with NFL, I am never going to go into coaching. No way I'm going to do it.
Right.
And then around 2005, I got into high school coaching. I did 3 years of that. I loved it. It was just very difficult dealing with the parents. That's why I kind of got out.
I've heard about the high school parents, Marvin. I heard that's the hardest roadblock for many coaches.
In the state of Florida, because, it's just so much talent and everybody. They think their baby is just the best. And, so I did that. And then there was a league I got into called the FXFL. So I coached that for 2 years. Actually, it's the same guy that is the president of the USFL. The league that's coming out. So I did 2 years of that, intern at the Jets. I was defensive coordinator a couple years at College Gridiron Showcase.
Yeah.
Then I got in. Then all of a sudden, around that time, the guy says, "Hey, I'm going to get a head coaching job in the pro end of football, and I want you to be my defensive coordinator." And that was the 2017 season, and I got into it, and I've been in it ever since. I mean, I moved around. I was in Colorado. I've headed coach in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, where it's really cold.
I love how you pointed that out because you're a Miami guy, so that was cold for you.
Oh yeah, but you get used to it real fast. And so the last 3 years I've been in Omaha. I've been a head coach. I was an assistant head coach, and I took over as an interim head coach in 2019, and I've been the head coach ever since. It's been a great thing. I mean, it's able to work with these guys because I use it more of a developmental. I have guys from D1. I have guys from D2. I had guys that were in NFL camps, CFL camps. And I've been able to help a lot of those guys on their journey get back into, the CFL. So it's been great and rewarding. I mean, this year was probably the best year of my coaching career because I am the first head coach in the 22-year history of the team to win the championship.
Look at that. Congratulations, Marvin.
Absolutely. Thank you. So,
amazing. We saw the ring bling in Marvin.
So that was tremendous. Like I said, this is the longest indoor team. So it's 22 years. So nobody's done what I've done.
It's amazing. It's amazing. And I'll tell you, I have an appreciation for these teams you're coaching because I did cover the Washington Valor, what was then the Arena Football League. So you're saying I kind of know those guys' stories, right? Especially trying to make it to the next level. We were very sad and heartbroken, when the AFL went away. But I think it's so great you're giving back that way. And I think you really see just a lot of guys with wonderful stories in all these leagues. And all that to say, do you think right now, so we know about minor league systems, right? Official minor league systems with sports programs. Do you think it's time now that the NFL needs to consider a minor league system, an official minor league system, to try to have more great players hopefully move up the ranks?
NFL has always had a minor league system. It's called free labor from college.
Yeah. It's just true. It's just true.
Well, if you look at it this way, the NFL has always been traditionally, they're about making money.
Right.
And the hardest thing about minor leagues, they don't make any money because you don't have stuff like revenue sharing. You don't have, it takes a lot of money to run a team. We're a team of 25 players.
Right.
a small organization, and it's still going to cost us, $300,000 to $400,000 to run a 12-week season.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not saying we're making a ton of money. I don't think most of those owners start off minus $200,000. So
Right.
the NFL isn't going to touch anything that doesn't make money. You got to remember, they got a TV deal that's paying them billions of dollars a year before they even play a game.
Very true.
So,
yep.
And the Shield is well known around the world. I mean, people want that Shield so bad and what it means to being part of that fraternity. It's a very exclusive. When you have that NFL patch, it's an exclusive club.
Yeah.
And the NFL is just not going to put that on anything. Why would you? Like I said, you got 119 colleges.
Yeah, that are doing the work for you, like you said. And now I'd say with the NIL, right? The introduction of the NIL, also curious your thoughts on that, name, image, and likeness. Did you think this was a win and a positive for college sports?
I think it's a positive if it's done right. I think that for me, doing the NIL agreement, I mean, I'm glad the players are able to make money. But I think that it could be better done in some ways, whether it's some type of trust or something, things like that. My thing would be if they tacked on that, even if there's NIL. But my most important thing would be, hey, give the guys an extra 2 years of free college so they can complete their degrees also. Throw something like that in there. Just giving guys a bunch of money at that young age is going to hurt them unless they're mature, especially guys that don't have any financial backing or understanding. We're coming from a lot of families in the inner city that don't understand the money thing. I mean, how is a guy like Travis Hunter on campus after he signs a $3.5 million? The guy's probably going to have bodyguards.
It's true because he doesn't know the money he's bringing in, right?
Right. But I think it's great. I think my son had an opportunity to get involved in that stuff. But I tell you what, my son's decision solely was based on where he liked. It was never about the NIL. So I have a lot of respect for him making that decision, because if it was me, I'm going where the money at. But I think it's a great thing if you think about it this way in a nutshell. I left Florida State in 92, which is almost 30 years ago.
Yeah, it's about as old as me, Marvin.
No, almost 30 years ago. Well, I'll tell you what, you don't look that. I wouldn't guess that. I don't guess a lady age, but I wouldn't think you were a day over 27. But anyway, it's been 30 years since I left Florida State.
Right.
Do you know that right now, if I still wanted to use a picture of me in Florida State's uniform, I have to ask for permission still? Mm-hmm. Even with the New York Jets, I can't use anything of there for sale. After I've been going out of there 18 years, I still can't use any of my image likeness to sell without or reproducing a photograph without express written consent from the team.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it's just true. And I think people don't really realize this. And that's why I'm glad you touched on it, because I was going to ask you, what do you think it would have been like for you if they had the NIL when you were at FSU?
I had one picture that went all around the world, and that's me playing against University of Miami when I made a hit that was reproduced several times. There had been hundreds of thousands, maybe 1 million of those things floating around. And I'm looking at that as like every time I see it, because people always playing it. Every time there's Florida State Miami game, it shows up all over the internet. And I'm like, man, if I would have been still even gotten something for that, it could have helped. You got to realize football is such a short earning period. I played 11 years, and that's still short, because I finished after 11 years at 31 years old. I was one of the youngest guys playing in the NFL. I got to the NFL when I was 20. But that shortage of lifespan of earning potential is so short. So if you did have any type of NIL and able to still profit from that could put a lot of guys in better position, because not all of us are going to go straight from playing the game to making $1 million on TV, or making $1 million to $5 to $10 million. And that's what's happening for some, and not for the others, not for the rest of us.
Right.
You know, I was looking at the salaries at some of these guys the other day. I mean, Tony Romo renegotiated $7 million. Now he's making probably $17 million. I mean, I would like that too, but
wouldn't we all, Marvin?
Right, but but that's what hurts a lot of guys, because $1 million ain't gonna last you the rest of your life.
It's not. It sounds like a lot, but especially in America, good luck.
Right, you buy a house and a car, you halfway there.
And depending on where you live, it might be even more than that. Like if you're in Los Angeles or New York City. So you're so right. And, I do think, and this is why I'm glad you're preaching this, because I do think this is a message for the younger players, especially to hear. Because, one thing I hate as a journalist doing all the time, and many of us hate, is doing the broke athlete story, Marvin. We've all done it too many times. All right.
And it's just understand this. There's two sides to that. Mm-hmm. A lot of these guys had their money stolen.
Yeah, people. And that's why you have to watch your circle, right? And watch who's around you, because it's true. It's true. They trusted the wrong people with their money.
Well, you got to realize a lot of these people on the other side of the fence have been at this a long time. I mean, you can, all the people in your circle are all just, hey, I got a guy you can buy cars from. That's a buddy. I got a guy you can buy houses from. You got a guy that from all these circles that are all benefiting from you. And what happens is, remember, if you don't have paper money in your hand and you just got a card to swipe, I mean, you don't even see that money. So all of a sudden, you got to have I think you got to have a really good agent. You got to have a really good money person that'll just tell you, you know, you don't need to be flying private jets.
You don't.
Because you keep swiping that card and swiping and swiping. And then at the end of the year, you get that statement. It's like, wow, I just spent $250,000 on something. Yeah. So you got to really have somebody that's going to check you. I mean, I've seen too many agents that whatever the client wants, they go out and get, and not understanding that there's always, I mean, you're one accident away, you're one divorce away. I mean,
and child support and things like that can eat at your money, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, all those things can have big factors later on in life, but I mean, they're the unknown. So you got to try to save as much as you can and put it, in the growth somewhere. But I mean, that's difficult now. I mean, where do you put your money to, I mean, if you don't have real estate or something, it's very, very tough opportunities, because while I played, everybody wanted to give me everything. Oh, we got this for you, man. When I took that jersey off, what you say? What happened to that deal? Oh, no. What deal?
So about that deal.
When you take that shield off, everything else goes along with it. That's why while you play in the NFL, you have to get everything you can possibly get and maximize on everything, because the minute that jersey comes off, I mean, your marketing ability, unless you make it to the Hall of Fame or you're some famous quarterback, I mean, your earning power drops significantly.
Yeah. Like Tom Brady probably will be fine for a good while, a portion of his life, but you're right. Not everybody is TV well, right? And it just is what it is. Like you said.
He's got a wife too. She worked about $250 million herself.
She
does. That's a good
safety
net, but it also helped him as being the great player that he is, because he never had to take the $100 million contracts, because he knew that he had to have other guys around him. All these guys that take the $100 million contract, look at their teams.
Right, you can see it. Yep, not a lot of wins.
You can't hire anybody else.
Yeah. Like you said, it's such a good point. I think it's kind of that unselfishness, like you said, where the team is bigger than just me. And this is why we've seen Tom Brady be successful. And who knows, maybe even be successful once again this year. We'll see where things go as we head to the Super Bowl in Los Angeles. And talking about Los Angeles and sunny skies, Marvin, I want to talk about your background and what it was like growing up in Miami, Florida. Like you said, Florida's been a hotbed for a long time of lots of great talent. But let's talk about how you first gained your love for the sport of football.
Well, my love for the game was really young. I've always wanted to be a professional football player until I was about 5 years old. Yeah. I mean, I played touch and played tackle, and I was like always a big kid. I can remember when I was in the 5th grade, I was about 5'8", 150 pounds. So I was a pretty big kid. Yep. And I had a cousin at the time and that played for the Raiders at the time. He was the first-round draft choice out of Ohio State in the early 70s. So, getting an opportunity to watch him and had his baseball cards, but and I just came from one of those neighborhood. Everybody on our block played football outside. Now, you don't see that as much on the parks and stuff like that.
That's why empty parks now, Marvin. Like, oh, where are the kids? Like, we loved being outside and playing. And of course,
I even told people back then we would walk 5-10 miles to go play football. We didn't even have cell phones, so your parents couldn't even contact you. As long as you were home by nightfall, but we were gone all day. We used to play streets against streets. It was great. I mean, it was awesome. I'm the youngest of 7, grew up in an 800 square foot house, down in Coconut Grove. And, I've always been around football. We had some great players come out of our neighborhood at that time. All went to the University of Miami at that time, even though I never really liked them. Because my brother attended Florida State and was a really good player, a linebacker at Florida State. And my goal is I wanted to be like him. He was number 55. I became number 55. My nephew went to Florida State. He became 55. So missed out on the last 55. That's at Georgia. But football has just been, I'm thankful for it because I would have never had the opportunity. My parents couldn't afford college. My mom was a homemaker. My dad was a disabled vet. I mean, we had no money. I mean, we made like you talk about Christmas, we made our own toys.
Yeah. I mean, but look, that's a reality for some. I mean, not everybody's able. Now I hear parents talking about giving their kids $500 and stuff, like things I couldn't even imagine or dream of, Marvin. So I don't think people now know how lucky they are. Like, man, that would be like hitting the lotto for me.
Well, we had back then. You had to hit the numbers. When your parents hit the number because you had steak or something. We got the meal,
Special meal coming out, mom's bringing the house smelling all good, like you said, then But I appreciate you touching on your background. And like I said, you said a lot of players have come out of that area. Then you go on to Miami Northwestern High School, and you kind of talked about that. You talked about being bigger than the other kids. You were 6'2", right? 225 pounds when you got to FSU. So pretty big guy, but I also want to talk about the number 55 and why it meant so much to you. Because I know you said this before. It's the speed limit. Everything stops, right? Everything stops there. So 55.
I prided myself on not missing tackles. So whenever I hit you, everything stopped. But like I said, my brother went to Florida State in 83 to 86. He was the first one to wear 55. I went to college. I went to high school at Miami Northwestern, inner city school. So we were so poor, we couldn't even afford to get number 55 at the time. So every week I had a different number. I don't think we got 55 to my senior year at Northwestern. It's the inner city school, and it was, we were at that time we had no weight room, we had none of those things. We had a dirt field, we had to water it down before we practiced, so we didn't choke on the dust.
Oh my gosh!
And so when I had the opportunity to have it at Florida State, I modeled after my brother. I wanted to have that number, and I turned it into something that's retired. Something that's, that hangs up in the stadium. Something that's always going to be there. So
let's talk about what it feels like, Marvin, to have that jersey retired and to know you made such an impact. And even till this day, like you said, people are still talking about the things that you did in college as a football player to be regarded as one of the best at that position.
Well, it was definitely, it's tremendous. It's definitely tremendous honor. A lot of these millennials have no clue because they're still doing polls about who's the hardest hitter on the team. And I'm like, that ain't even in the history of the team. That ain't even a competition for me. That's something that, I've been the hardest hitter forever. That's just millennial talk. But it's great when you have opportunity. You have opportunity to go back a lot of times, and a lot of the mature people my age or a lot of the older people that attended those games. They still want to talk about them stories and stuff like that. And I tell them sometimes I can't talk about the story too much because it's not making me any money anymore. So
that part, Marvin.
I can't do that all day. You know, it's quite a tremendous honor to accomplish all the things I did at Florida State. You know, we had tremendous players that I played with also that definitely were a part of that. Me excelling at those goals, and you know, it's something that's gonna, like I said, it's something that's gonna always be there. I can always go to every time I go to Florida State, whether it's my Butkus Trophy or Lombardi Trophy, or you know, they have a new big picture of me inside of the stadium club up there, or my jersey hanging up. It's, you know, it's been great. I tell you, it's a great feeling. My kids happen to spend that day on my jersey retirement. So
wonderful.
You know, so it was an awesome thing. So that's why I thought, you know, Marvin Jr. might have ended up there.
I showed him the way.
Yeah, but these kids now, they got a mind of their own, and you know, like I said, I think that he'll do well as long as he just got to stay focused and, you know, just get past being my son. I mean, which he's always going to be because he has my name, but he has to get past that. You know, I always tell him, you don't have to be like me. I mean, you be better than I was.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, and I think he'll have that opportunity to do that at Georgia. I mean, Kirby Smart is, you know, a defensive guy, so I think he'll really excel at that. Like I said, he just has to go in with the right attitude, have a motor, and work hard. You know, he's put himself in a great position. So now the hard work starts. So I got him training with a trainer that, you know, is one of those drill sergeants. So I think that'll really help get him in the right direction. And I'm looking forward to watching him excel and hopefully getting an opportunity to play in the NFL. You know, I don't want him to be the first pick because first 4 picks. I want him to for the money reasons, but I don't want him to go to the worst team.
But the teams they're going to. It's true. And you
worst teams. That's the misnomer.
And look,
you get the money and the worst teams.
And you know, for you, you know, since you know that experience firsthand, right? Being a very high NFL draft pick, like you said, it's hard, right? Because like you do so well in college, and all of a sudden, like you said, you go to these teams usually in rebuild mode, and it can be hard, you know, for these guys. I mean, look at the situation now happening in Jacksonville, right? We had a young quarterback in Trevor Lawrence. We know the whole situation with Urban Meyer now. Like that has to be a lot for a young guy, right? You're trying to handle the team. You and your coach aren't seeing eye to eye. The world is kind of judging. Like that's a lot for a young guy to be in. And so it seems like, you know, we talked about Lamar Jackson earlier, but say you are a player that's talented, you get drafted later. And it seems like, for example, Lamar goes to Baltimore, and it seems like they make the right system for him to excel there, right? And being on a pretty good team. So it can be tough. It can be tough, like you said, when you're one of those first picks.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know why they hire Urban Meyer, because what happens a lot of times when you have a lot of young guys and young team, you need a college coach that they feel is going to come in and impose that discipline on those guys. The same thing you got going on in Carolina with Matt Rule and these guys. You know, the winning percentages are not going to be there. But I think sometimes when a team is going through phase, they want to get these guys in there to weather the storm, because no established NFL coach is going to take these jobs. That's just it. I mean, it's just like
look at the money they're making in college coaching, Marvin. Lots of money right now in college coaching. We see some of these big moves at these programs.
I mean, look at Mel up at Michigan State. I mean, that's historical for, you know, a black coach to have a contract like that. So things are definitely trending up in regards to that. I like that, you know, but you know, a lot of these college coaches got to understand there's one thing you have to deal with in the NFL. Players make more money than you. And you have to treat them like men. You can't treat them like college kids.
And they're not, right? Those are men.
It don't work that way. And that's where a lot of them fail. It's trying to tell them, oh, yeah, well, you're going to do this and do that and try to assert your authority on them. No. Look, sir, I'm making $10 million a year. I ain't going nowhere. I'm not going anywhere. I was with the Jets 11 years. I went through 6 head coaches and Belichick for a day. So I used to look at him like, I'm going to outlast all y'all.
You understand adversity for the coaches, right? You know you were going to be there. And I think that's such an important point. And Marvin, before I get you out of here, I want to go to one more question from the fans. Since you talked about the Jets, Chris Pompey wants to know, Marvin, what was it like playing versus Jim Kelly, Dan Marino, in the John Elway era?
Oh, me and my ex-teammate talked about this the other day. And we talked about how difficult it was just getting out of our conference. If you go to AFC East, right, you had Jim Kelly twice a year, Dan Marino twice a year, even Drew Bledsoe, even Peyton Manning, because people forget the AFC East had the Indianapolis Colts in it during that era too. So, I mean, John Elway. I mean, it was, wow. It was, even I went in, I had to play against Randall Cunningham, Warren Moon was down in Houston. I mean, it was different era. Every quarterback we played against back then, Hall of Famers. Even Joe Montana, when he went to, he's a Hall of Famer.
Right.
And the other guy over there, that's the head coach of the Baltimore Ravens. He used to be with the Colts.
Yeah.
So, played against him too. I think I didn't get fined for hitting him. I don't think so.
We got to think about the fine.
But if you look at the way now the NFL, that's probably the reason why the quarterbacks are protected the way they are today, because you just don't. And it's not an insult to the guys, but you just don't have that type of quality right now. Let's look through the NFL right now.
Okay.
How many of those guys are going to be Hall of Famers?
Well, you're right. I mean, obviously, we got Tom Brady. That's the first one that comes on. That's the first one.
Let's go. Let's think about who's going to be. Tell me who?
Patrick Mahomes. Are we filming Patrick Mahomes?
Okay, Patrick Mahomes.
You said you like Lamar. Do you think Lamar could be?
Eventually.
Okay. But what you're saying is, and this is why I go back to the quarterback conversation that we're having. Like you said, you played in a golden era of quarterbacks. And that's why I wanted to ask you earlier about Tyler Huntley, because there's a lot of teams that aren't fully sold on their quarterback situation. You talked about Matt Rule. We see what's happening with Carolina. We saw Cam Newton, for instance, make this return. And actually curious if you think Cam Newton can be a Hall of Famer. But Cam Newton coming back, and, it's just not the same. And we see what's happening in Carolina. And obviously the Sam Darnold experience went wrong. So a lot of teams are looking here in Washington. We just had to have Gary Gilbert go out. We have Taylor Heineke trying him out, but we saw the Dwayne Haskins era in Washington didn't work, Marvin. So I think you're making such good points. Like you said, that we just don't have that same type of thing. And then you look at your team like the Jets and Zach Wilson, right? And we're seeing how that's kind of playing out. But
let me ask you this, and this is another question that'll prove my point.
Yeah.
How many quarterbacks in the NFL right now have been in the Super Bowl?
There you go. And see, you're making a good point. And this is why, to your point, Marvin, this is why many are already saying it's a good chance that, Tampa Bay had some horrible injuries after that last game, but many are saying maybe Tom Brady goes back.
Tom Brady, Cam Newton, Aaron Rodgers,
right? And Packers looking good.
Patrick Mahomes. Now let's go after that.
Yeah, I'm racking my brain going, you're right.
Russell Wilson had Russell Wilson,
right?
So that's 5.
And Russell, remember that other
5 out of 30. Go, let's go.
Going through the quarter, but you make a good point, Marvin.
Well,
so
Ben Roethlisberger. So that's 6. Ben Roethlisberger.
Forgot about Big Ben in Pittsburgh. Yes, I'm talking about another future Hall of Famer. But you're right. And even though Big Ben, there's questions about the future with him in Pittsburgh since he's getting older. But you make a good point, Marvin. And to that point, I'm curious. That's why I was kind of glad you didn't say for the Jets to draft another quarterback for your Christmas wish, because I've seen some of that on Twitter. Marvin. So.
Yeah, I know. It's been tough for him. It's been tough.
It's hard
for
to find a franchise guy, though. Not everybody gets lucky and gets a Patrick Mahomes, right, handed to them, and somebody that you're able to nurture and just plays great, even though he kind of started rough this season. And so, like you said, and even looking at the college quarterbacks now, you have to think what teams are going to take a chance on some of these guys coming out, or do you look at backups now and just try to keep developing them? It's a lot of questions, lots of questions that has to be answered. It looks like somebody like Jalen Hurts. Yeah. Chris, I don't know if you're saying a future Hall of Famer, but I think Jalen Hurts is one that he's talking about he likes and is playing pretty well, especially that last game against the Washington football team, playing pretty well right now. But Marvin, it's been such a pleasure to have you. Marvin Chatree Jones, folks, appreciate your time. Congrats again on all your success. And we're looking forward to seeing your son on the gridiron this upcoming football season. You're going to be watching the bowl game, right, with Georgia?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, we're watching that game. I'm sure my son will be too. It's an opportunity. Michigan's going to be a tough opponent. It's going to be a great game. I hope they can pull it out, but I know it's going to be a tough game. If they can pull it out and get an opportunity to play in that championship, I think that'll really do a lot for Georgia. They just got to finish it. I mean, they've not finished it. So
and you're talking about Michigan. Lots of people latching on that. Many excited. We talked about John Harbaugh in Baltimore. Excited for his brother Jim and the job that he's doing with Michigan. So lots of great bowl games coming up. Rooting for my Terps, of course, coming up in one of these upcoming bowl games. Marvin, you know your expression.
They'll finish in the top 30.
But Marvin Jones, thanks again so much. And Jets Nation, like, you're welcome. We got to relive one of the greats that played football. So thanks again so much. Looking forward to hopefully one day going down to FSU and seeing all that you've accomplished in that jersey up there and everything, Marvin. I got to make myself down to a game down there. But thanks again so much for joining me. Have a great night and appreciate you coming on. Happy holidays, Marvin.
And happy holidays.
Thank you so much. Have a great one, Marvin. Bye. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning into the special live stream edition of Listening with KNN. We'll be back next week for our last live stream show of the year. We're also going to be continuing to drop some audio shows. We haven't forgotten you all yet as we close out 2021. Thank you all so much for your continuous support. We have a brand new website launching and so much more. Working on bringing our spring interns, and a special shout out to my fall and winter interns for the phenomenal job that they did. Could not do the show without my fabulous team. And so also a big thanks to my team. See you all next week. Merry Christmas, happy holidays, happy Hanukkah, happy Kwanzaa, and all these great holidays coming up. And again, we're ending this year strong, folks. Thanks so much for tuning in. Could not do it without you all. Bye, guys.
Follow Kelsey on social media at The Real K Nelson. Catch episodes of Listen In with KNN on YouTube, on air at AM 1340 and 96.9 FM, Fox Sports Radio, on Facebook and Twitter, and online at KelseyNicoleNelson.com. Thank you for watching this live stream broadcast of Listen In with KNN.
With the season change, it's time to renew your skin with a facial. Schedule an appointment at Skin Beauty Bar. Featured in InStyle magazine and Essence, this staple designation in Capitol Hill offers an array of services from facials, waxing, airbrush tanning, and eyelash lift. Visit their website at skinbeautybardc.com to schedule an appointment.
All About Burger has all of your favorites, from their never-frozen burger to their fresh-cut fries, ice cream, and milkshakes. All About Burger offers the best lunch in the area. If you desire a fresh handmade burger or some delicious ice cream, stop by All About Burger, which is located throughout the DMV. All About Burger, always fresh.
Listen In with KNN on Fox Sports Radio now offers official Kelsey Nicole Nelson apparel in a variety of styles for men and women. Fashionable shirts, leggings, hats, jackets, and more. Order now and get 15% off and free shipping. Just enter promo code KNN. Get your Listen In with KNN wearables today. And check out Listen In with KNN on Fox Sports Radio with Kelsey Nicole Nelson.
You used to hear me on your airwaves or hear me on my hit podcast, but now I'm taking you to the screen. You'll love Elevator Thoughts. We will talk the latest trending in sports. It's game time. What better way to get to know those that visit the show than over some good food and drink? It's time for confessions.